Good day and welcome to this webinar, which is a religion, values and ethics webinar for people teaching RVE all over Wales. I'm Lat B I work for RE Today, and I've been doing lots and lots of work in Wales over the last year and a half as the RVE innovations have come into place. And one of the recurrent needs there that we perceive is to have an absolute clarity about what it means when it says that religion and values and ethics will be taught in ways that are objective and critical and pluralistic. So in this webinar, which will last just about 60 minutes, I'm intending to give an overview of what those three terms mean and some examples from the classroom from infants and juniors and secondary age group to show how a critical, pluralistic, objective religion, values and ethics education should look. I hope you'll find some controversy here. You might not agree with everything I say, that's fine, but I hope you'll also find some food for thought and some practical ways forward. Thanks very much for joining. So what we're going to do as we work through examples of this kind of religious education is just examine the ways in which that terminology, key terminology for us, has come about and what this kind of RE looks like, this kind of RVE looks like in Wales. And those terms, critical, objective, pluralistic, those have been given to us in law. They speak about a religion and values and ethics education that has a particular character. It's not to be the opposite of those things. It's not to be uncritical, subjective, monocultural. And we'll come back to those opposites in a while because they're quite important. I'd like to thank, as we begin, Partner Iatha, the consortium of local authorities, and particularly Swansea Sacre and the West Hill Trust, who provided the resources for the work that we've been involved in. My colleagues Angela Hill and Jennifer Harding-Richards particularly, but loads and loads and loads of teachers, perhaps yourself included, who've been involved in trialling project materials for our RVE innovations. Thanks very much to everyone who's made this possible. And could I just draw your attention to a piece of work from Gabriella, she's 12, and this is a piece of work that she entered into our Art in Heaven competition this year. Look at it, Ubuntu, she writes, I am because we are, a quotation, a key word from Desmond Tutu from African Cultural Heritage of Solidarity. And she describes what she's painted there, referring to Joe Cox MP, who of course was killed in a tragic racist murder back in 2016 by a white supremacist attacker in her constituency of Batley and Spen. Gabriella has taken all that on board and she says, well, everyone's different, but it's not 100% true, is it? And whatever you do affects and impacts on others. Bringing people together, Tutu says, means Ubuntu, I am because we are. Gabriella found this a learning phrase. She says it really struck with me as I linked it into this religion, education and values project. And she says, I like exploring different views, but surely we all have the same intentions of making life good, kinder, better. My artwork tells a story of a shattered world. I created this on canvas. I painted the heart, but I've slashed the heart to reflect how so many of us, all of us, suffer in the world. But our hearts can be mended. We can help each other. She asserts her agreement with Joe Cox and with Desmond Tutu. Collectively, we're part of the human race that should be coming together to help and heal each other, not be divided by our differences. Can I suggest to you, colleagues, that that's great RVE? I love the way it's engaged with the values of pluralism, the values of the fact that we may come at life with different religions and philosophical convictions, but we come at it all as human. I love the way in which she critiques positions that she doesn't accept, with some sense of reason behind the way in which she writes. Is that objective, critical and pluralistic? I can't illustrate all three of those terms in just a single piece of pupils' work, but I think this piece by 12-year-old Gabriella steps in the right direction. And the urgent need, I think, as we open up and develop our RVE practice in schools across Wales, the urgent need is actually to exemplify what good work in this area with these characteristics actually looks like. And of course, as the new syllabuses have come into action, then the need for agreed syllabuses in the different local areas has become important. I'll just quote you here from Swansea's agreed syllabus, which unpacks those three terms. It says, objective RVE should explore the reality of facts relating to religion and belief. Critical RVE should encourage learners to think deeply and skillfully as they explore the truth. Pluralistic RVE should help learners appreciate a diverse range of ideas and beliefs. Pluralistic RVE can't be just about Christianity or just about humanism or just about Islam. Pluralistic RVE must take in a diverse range of ideas and beliefs and practices. So I'd like to just go through those three first of all. So what do we mean when we're talking about objectivity? Well, of course, in the discipline of philosophy, objective truth is that which is true independently of individual minds or positions or biases. And there's a long philosophical history back through Aristotle to Plato to Socrates, but into 20th and 21st century Western philosophy, and similar interest from Dharmic traditions from Eastern philosophy as well. How can we speak about the truth in ways that are independent, separate from our own individual minds and biases? And when we're studying religion, then particularly, of course, religions do lay claim, don't they, to truth. They say, I'm telling you the truth about what it means to be human, about what it means to have our place in the world. So, seeking a comprehensive understanding of why religions are many and of why religions and philosophical convictions disagree with each other, we need the tools of objectivity. Those tools include just being aware that I am biased. Nobody stands nowhere. I come from my experiences within or beyond any religion or particular philosophical tradition, and being able to see fairly other people's different views and perspectives and set my biases aside to stand in other people's shoes, the skills of listening and dialogue, the skills of empathy, those contribute to, I think, my view, those contribute to objectivity. And of course, I think it's important there that an objective position with regard to religion and philosophical conviction should seek perspectives that are informed by different views or disciplines. So, for instance, if you want to be objective about Christianity or Islam, then you need to take account of what the insiders have to say about their sacred text, the Bible and the Quran. But you also need to take account of what the outsiders have to say of what critical textual study might tell you about what is the nature of the Bible and the nature of the Quran. And as you weigh up your vision, your understanding of what is true within or about those sacred texts, then perspectives well informed by sociology of religion, by philosophy of religion, by textual study, by history, and by the theologies of the Christians and the Muslims will all be of value. Philosophical convictions, different religious truth claims, all of them are open to challenge in the pursuit of truth in the RVE classroom. And that's what makes me a great lover of RVE, because I think that the idea that every view should be up for attention, up for critique, up for argument, up for reasonable exploration is an astonishing thing in our education system. Nothing like it happens in the American system. Nothing like it happens in France. But in the UK, we have objective RE as one of our intentions. And in Wales in particular, with a fresh focus in RVE on the objectivity of the subject of study. Now, could we talk next briefly about critical RVE? First of all, to say that critical thinking does these kinds of things. It observes. So if you want to be a critical thinker about religion, look at religion and then analyze what you see and do it in ways that are at least open-minded enough to listen in to what the practitioners of the Hindu tradition or Jewish people might have to say. And the typical processes of learning in RVE lead to problem-centered analysis. So there is a claim here that there is a great God full of love. Is that true? How could we verify? What problems does that claim raise? And here's another claim, that when we're dead, then we're dead, and our consciousness doesn't survive. What evidence could we bring to bear on that claim? How could we be critically alert to the ways in which that claim works within non-religious, death is the end, schools of thought in some non-religious philosophical traditions? And these tools of critical thinking, they get applied in RVE to any religion, any philosophical conviction. And sometimes young people find that uncomfortable. Sometimes children who come from a strong family culture in which Christianity or atheism or Islam are held to be the truth and are seen as the way of life that that family wants to pursue, then sometimes it's uncomfortable for children and young people to come into the realm of critical thinking that is religious education. So that criticality needs to be experienced, not as a negative, not as a conflict inductor within the context of the RVE classroom, but actually it's about argument and debate tested by reason, pursued with respect for different persons and with potentially respect for different positions, different arguments, different sets of reasons as well. Ways of life and ethics and practices in different religions and from different worldviews are examined with sociological or psychological or exploratory disciplines of study. And these processes are not about attacking. They are not about giving a negative criticism The word critical there is often used in a negative sense, isn't it? But here it's used not negatively. Instead, it's something that you must do if you want to make an accurate, thoughtful appraisal based on evidence and reason of the claims of different philosophical convictions and religions. Being critical, not in this context a negative. And then the third one is about being pluralistic. When it comes to religion and philosophical convictions, the world is plural. Wales is plural. Even if you think God is one, religions are many, and non-religious views are many more. So all the different worldviews available for study in the RVE classroom, they all deserve some attention or space. And we can't actually give that to 40,000 different religious and non-religious philosophical convictions, worldviews, and perspectives. So we have to be selective there, but we must be pluralistic. And RVE teaches pupils about these different views, intending to do it with some integrity, to say, here is how the Christians see Christianity, here is how the humanists see humanism, here is how the existentialists see existentialism. But how do those different groups see each other? How do those different perspectives, those different worldviews, those different communities from which an inquiry into the human condition proceeds, how do those wrestle with each other? With integrity is my answer in the context of the RVE classroom. Pluralism going beyond just describing plurality, it's actually positive about difference. It doesn't just say we're all different, we come from many religions and worldviews. It says actually that's a source of human enrichment, it's a source of human learning. We celebrate the diversity. And if you are an atheist or a theist, if you're an agnostic or a Sikh, if you are Jewish or Christian, then being open to learning from the plurality of the globe on which you find yourself is what I would call a positive commitment to pluralism. Anybody can make that, but not everybody does. So would you notice that we're not there saying all religions are the same or all views are just a matter of personal taste? I'm going to call that God relativism, and I've got no time for it. I think that needs interrogating just as much as any religion or philosophy. Instead, open to the truth claims of different worldviews, different philosophical convictions, different religions. RVE encourages pupils to be the opposite of indoctrinated. Some people still try and pin indoctrination onto my subject. I'm not having it. The subject is not indoctrinatory, it's the opposite. Because it's pluralistic, it says here in the RVE classroom, all different viewpoints, all different baskets of evidence, all different claims to truth, all different routes towards objective and critical understanding of what it means to be human. Those are all available for study. So there you have it, a whistle-stop tour for certain of what it means to say RVE is to be objective and critical and pluralistic. And can I just take you back there to the idea I gave at the start, which says you might just think about the opposites of those. So notice that these are not necessarily bad, okay? If you're talking to your lover, then you'd probably better be subjective, not too objective. If you want to be critically engaged in the pursuit of truth on some occasions, then there may be times when an uncritical falling into the flow of beauty or the flow of spirituality from within your religion or your philosophical tradition, to be absorbed by the gorgeousness of the perspective with which you see the world. Not every day do you need your critical apparatus to be fully in play. And sometimes a univocal perspective on life, the universe, and everything that happens within a community, perhaps a community of faith or a philosophical community, and then that's a wonderful thing to be a part of. Say, look at us, we see the world this way, and here we are all together, not damning, not damaging those who disagree, but enjoying the fellowship of like-minded humanity. But in the classroom, we will have an objective, uncritical, critical, and plural vision of RVE, so that if the studies that we do reinforce prejudice or if they don't challenge bias, say against Muslims, Islamophobia, an ugly head reared in the context of Welsh culture just at the moment in some cases, if the study reinforces prejudice or doesn't challenge bias, then it's not good RVE. And if you only study one religion, or if you privilege one religion or philosophical conviction, then that's not good RVE. And if you don't use the tools of reason in age-appropriate ways for pupils, then that's not good RVE. And if pupils ever experience the learning experience in RVE as in any way coercive, nudging, pushing, edging them towards particular conclusions, particular perspectives, that's not good RVE either. Now, the projects that myself and Angela Hill and Jennifer Harding-Richards and altogether about a team of 100 tryout teachers have been engaged with, these projects have been producing resources, something over 100 lessons at the moment, and we're adding to these currently. We're going to add to each of these 10 lesson units some ways of exploring the units through pre-made PowerPoint resources. I want to say straight away that this resource project, which we've mounted on the RE Today Wales pages of the RE Today website, and you can see the web address and the link there, these resources are not to undermine at all the principle of subsidiarity in Welsh RVE. In fact, the opposite. They're there for you to pick up and discard, for you to pick up and have a look at and say, no, I don't like that. I've already got a better idea. But without starting on a blank page, that's a very difficult way of innovating in RVE. We've wanted to strengthen the subject's resource banks and bases by providing around about 10 lessons around each of these themes. Okay, so for year 1 through to year 9, we've provided a unit of work which gives pupils the opportunity to explore, given all the structures of RVE in place within the area of learning experience around humanities, in relation to the cross-cutting themes, in line with the progression principles. All of that is built into these examples of unit plans, which, as I say, we offer very much on a take it or leave it basis. And you can see there the ground that we cover. One looks at the values of Jesus communicated through Christian story. Year 2, one looks at celebrations, and then we have one about Islam and values in year 2 as well. Symbols, Islamic belief and practice. A year 5 unit that explores humanist and Christian values and looks at comparisons, similarities, differences, agreements and disagreements between them. There's one unit for year 6 or year 7, which explores stained glass in Welsh architectural culture, including religious culture, but actually beyond that into a kind of the field of spirituality, because that identity, spiritual but not religious, rather different perhaps from some atheist non-religious identities, that identity of SBNR, spiritual but not religious, is really kind of quite common, quite prevalent in Welsh communities today, we feel. And then in Key Stage 3, we've looked at a unit called Is Religion Growing or Dying Out in Wales and in the World Today? One that looks at the challenges of living an Islamic life in Wales today, and the Year 9 unit that asks religion, is it a power for peace or a cause of war? And the answer to that, of course, is a complex kind of both in some ways. All of that material, colleagues, is available to you for primary and secondary RVE teachers for free, increasingly to be supported with webinars like this one that have been recorded and are available to you, and with PowerPoint resources and additional worksheets and downloads of various kinds for you to try out. And I'd like to take some examples here. First of all, focusing, if you will, with me on objective RVE. A number of examples here, and I think that objective, critical and pluralistic overlap, they intertwine, they dovetail in all kinds of ways. So although I'll start off by saying we ought to use the statistics of religion and belief to explore quite a bit about the current context of religion and philosophical convictions here in Wales, but we ought also to do that in ways that connect up to pupils' own experience. Now, this can sound quite hard, can't it? So I thought we'd start actually with an example from lower down the age range, okay? And this is an interesting knowledge organizer here. The pupils here were asked to investigate the unit question, why does Easter matter to Christians? That's a perfectly decent RVE question, isn't it? It's about what matters, so it's a values question, but it's also about religion, in this case about Christianity. And you can see there that we've got a lot of information and vocabulary, a few little symbols and illustrations there for Offanem Primary School. And one of the questions in there asks about who celebrates Easter and what is important to them. And can you just see there, the teacher has said there, we're going to do that as if we were young sociologists. So have a look. The children were presented with some data from a national survey. In a survey, people get asked a question. This survey was to find out, what do people do at Easter and Christmas? And just have a look at that. Who exchanges gifts? 87% of people in Britain exchange gifts at Christmas. Who gets together with their family? 81%. Who goes to church? 20%. Who reflects on the birth of Christ or the meaning of Easter? 16 or 19%. Just notice that giving this data to children already introduces, doesn't it, the fact that those two festivities, Easter and Christmas, in the UK today, in Wales, they are kind of religious festivals, but they're kind of secular festivals as well. And the teacher then asked this question from the YouGov poll to the class and to the community in the school. So YouGov asked, Do you celebrate Christmas? Is it important to you? 88% said, yeah, that's important. And 66% found Easter important. And then we have a gender split of that, okay? And that's interesting, isn't it? That shows generally that religious practice is more intense and more significant for women than it is for men. That applies in both the case of Christmas and Easter. And this survey, which was done in 2018, so it's already 5 years old, maybe that's changed since it was done, but just notice there, who celebrates Easter? What are the important things about Easter? Who does what? And would you notice that the Brits like food here? So eating hot cross buns and simnel cake, going on I'm doing some egg painting. Those are the most popular ways, more popular than going on a church visit or thinking about the meaning of the death of Christ. So all of that data put in front of pupils starts to draw their attention to some objective sociological investigation of what we call religion as a social fact. Religion as a social fact. So that's quite a good sociologist's definition of what it is that they look at. And I like this work, colleagues, because the teacher who sent it in to me was a year 2 teacher. And she was leading religious education across the classes of her primary school. And she asked Avon and Malvern class, what would you like to find out about? And after looking at the data, the children made their own questionnaire. How do you celebrate Easter? Do you or not? And do you eat this or that? And do you enjoy this or that? And do you give presents? And do you think about this or that? So this survey, they decided that they could go and ask not only other children across the school, but grown-ups, parents and adults around the school, do you celebrate Easter? What is meaningful to you about that celebration? And off they went. We want to find out about Easter celebrations. Please answer our survey below. So just look at that. Year 2s, 6 and 7-year-olds, becoming sociologists of religion, exploring the meaning of Easter, thinking like a sociologist. And I love the way in which the 2 different classes worked on this and did it slightly differently there. And they found out loads. Avon and Malvern class have been thinking like sociologists. Avon class asked 29 people and 28 of them said they celebrated Easter. And how do you do it? Well, everybody with eggs and about half with Easter presents and making crafts and bonnets. And interesting there, 16 out of 28 by thinking about Jesus on the cross, but only 5 by going to church. Can you see that these young sociologists, these 7-year-old sociologists, have done something extraordinary, I think, that teaches me a lesson about what an objective RVE might look like in the infant school. The children have used their mathematical skills to do some data presentation there. I think they've got a program that will do their bar charts for them. And as they pursued the inquiry, then Avon and Malvern class have put their materials in. But look, Cotswold class and Severn class also did the same. And they've been collecting information and ideas, experiences and perspectives about the celebration of Easter across a sample that now adds up to about 120 people. That's a proper bit of social research, isn't it? Exploring religion, exploring Christianity, exploring the celebration of Easter as a social fact, these children have become young sociologists of religion. And of course, the TA is doing the writing, because honestly, the children are thinking so fast here that they haven't got time to do the writing. Easter eggs is the most popular way to celebrate. Not many children choose to go to church. Only one of the adults attends church at Easter, but many of the adults do think about Jesus on his cross. The children like to take part in Easter egg hunts and make Easter crafts. Here's the whole sample put together across the 4 classes. Over 100 celebrators of Easter, just 2 or 3 who don't celebrate. And the overall picture from the 120 people involved in the survey gives, well, interesting data, doesn't it? I'm going to zip through it, but you can pause there if you want to as you watch the webinar and just consider, what does this kind of objective religious education imply? What sort of RE activities should I be doing in my school in order to enable pupils to come at religion, sometimes from the disciplinary perspective of social studies? That's an AOLE humanities requirement, isn't it? And in some ways, this work looks like social geography, or it looks like sociology in action. How do you celebrate Easter? Different ways of celebrating. That's the adult survey sample, much smaller there. The children, as I say, were doing a unit overall that asked about the Christian concept of salvation, which of course is a central theological concept to the study of Easter. But in this context, that question yielded the survey. Can you see from the RE Learning Zone displays that Malvern class and Cotswold class have made here? Can you see that they've learned a rich diet of language, haven't they, about Holy Week and Palm Sunday and Good Friday and resurrection and disciples? But they've also learned about the social study of Christianity. I wonder if you think that's a good example of the kind of work that we might need more of if we're going to talk seriously about objective religious education. There are many, many ways in which that work, when it was sent in to me, impressed me so much. As a former secondary RE teacher myself, I look at this work and I think to myself, it's way better than loads of what I used to do with Year 7 and Year 8. Now, would you just take that, please, to a bigger, broader, national, Welsh and UK-wide kind of setting? Because very handily for us, just as the RVE innovations happened from the Welsh Government, the 2021 census, with its rich veins of data about religion, has become available to us. So picture this work, if you will, with children who are 10 or 11, maybe on into Key Stage 3 with 12 and 13 and 14-year-olds. Introduce them to the census and get them to have a guess. What percentage do you think of the British population said, I'm a Buddhist, I'm a Christian, I have no religion, I belong to another religion, not one of those 6 that are listed? And actually, if you're watching this, you should really pause there and you should do it. Make your percentages add up to 100 and see if you've made correct guesses about the actual percentages of adherence to the different religious and philosophical convictions implied by the census question. But here are the answers. The Christian communities add up to 46%, the non-religious 37%, the Muslim communities about 6.5%. Other numbers are small, 1.7% Hindu, and then 0.9% Sikh, and less than that any other religion, and less than that Buddhist and Jewish. Just notice there that that picture of Britain needs a bit of historic context as well, and there again the humanities area of learning and experience comes to our aid, because those are the census data from the last 20 years, 2001, 2011, and 2021. And would you notice some very notable features of demographic change across the UK? The Welsh picture is actually startlingly similar to the general UK picture, except that religious minority communities are smaller across Wales than they are across England, and not as small as they would be in Northern Ireland. Let's look at the collapse in numbers of the Christian community. I'm a Christian myself, and I call that a collapse, not to be judgmental about it, but just to recognise the objective fact that those who identify as Christian fell from nearly 72% to just over 46% in that 20-year period. Where did they go? Most of them to a doubling, or more than doubling, from 15 to 37% of the non-religious. And notice that that increase in non-religious adherence doesn't actually reflect in capital H humanism at every point. Only 20,000 people call themselves capital H humanists by writing the word in the census in 2021. But a humanist mood, a humanist milieu, a non-religious milieu in which the ideas of humanism are very influential, that would perhaps be a better way of describing the growth in being non-religious across the UK. Did you notice there that if pupils don't understand that data, then they're missing out on objective RVE? I do think this is, I don't think there's many essential lessons in RVE. There's loads of different things you could do. But I think this is a pretty essential lesson. If you don't do this, then I wonder what you are doing. And would you notice with me that you can take that to the census interactive map, which is absolutely astonishing in its detail. Just have a look at this. I've centered in there on Caerphilly, because, do you know, Caerphilly is one of the most non-religious places in the United Kingdom. 56.7% of Caerphilly people responded to the census by saying, I have no religion. And if you want to, you can focus in on this. You can go right in, almost street by street, certainly ward by ward, constituency by constituency, to see who said, I'm a Christian, I'm non-religious, I'm refusing to answer that question, I'm a Muslim, whatever people have said there. And the important thing about that is that just from that little slot section of mapping that I've given you, you can see that across into the urban areas of Swansea and Neath and Bristol and Bath over on the English side of the channel, that intense presence of non-religious people is pretty strong. But then if you move further, And if you move across, can you just see over by Reading there? I've just put in the outskirts of Greater London, and there the centrality of non-religious answers to the census question falls off a bit. And that's interesting that London, of course, is a plural city, ethnically plural as well as religiously plural, and actually a more religious city than Cardiff or Swansea. I want pupils to grow up to understand what it is to be Welsh and to live in Wales and to explore the demographics of Wales. But I want them to do that in the context of the UK. And so I love the Census Interactive Map and its possibility of giving pupils access to some objective data about the changing patterns of religious and non-religious belief and conviction in the United Kingdom. Now, one of the ways in which we've summarised that, I've just put on a slide here for you. And I've just focused in there particularly on the Welsh statistics, okay? And notice there that the Welsh statistics are slightly less Christian and slightly less religious than the statistics in general for the United Kingdom. And for religious groups other than Christian, then notice that the Muslim communities of Wales add up to about 67,000 people. That's actually only 2.2% of the population of Wales. You remember that it was 6.5% was the Islamic demographic across the whole of the UK. So we see from that that Wales is less Islamic and less religious and more non-religious and less plural than the UK as a whole. Of course, the urban area, particularly Cardiff, that has a higher Islamic demographic, a higher Hindu demographic, and a higher Sikh demographic than we see in the rest of Wales. Did you know that? Anything there that surprised you, colleagues? If there was, then let's get wised up as teachers of RVE, and let's make sure that we teach pupils about Wales as it is, not as they imagine it is. An objective religious education is deeply, wildly interested in factuality. And that's why the unit that we've written, the planned unit, the example unit that we've written for pupils to look at in context of the Year 7 work, is called What is Religion? And is religion growing or dying out in Wales and in the world today? And in terms of enabling pupils to just develop as ethical, informed citizens, that's of course one of our key targets there, isn't it? Then I think an understanding, you've got to be an informed citizen, you've got to know what the demographics are. An understanding of that, I think, is central if pupils are to have an ethic of respect, an ethic of valuing diversity in an anti-racist Wales in the future. Our Year 7 unit asks pupils, will religion be growing or dying out in the next 50 years? And it does a lot of demographic study with pupils and a lot of theological study as well to say, why is it that religions think they will grow? Actually, sometimes because of the action of God, not just because of the action of sociological forces swirling around. So I asked loads and loads of pupils, some of them 11, 12, 13 and 14, to say, do you think religion will grow or die out in the next 50 years? And I picked here 20 examples of articulate, but in some ways fairly typical responses. And they're a bit balanced. So you'll find plenty of dying outs there and plenty of growings and one or two boths. And if you look down those, I wonder if you were sorting them out, the ones that you agree with and the ones that you disagree with. I wonder if there would be some learning points for you there. The debating question is a tough question for pupils if they start with a blank sheet of paper, okay? Will religion be growing or dying out in the next 50 years? Do you know, kids? No. But we don't start off with blank sheets of paper in geography or history or social studies. We feed pupils with information, perspective, ideas, carefully sorted concepts and new words so that they can debate and engage with an issue of significance and complexity. And that's what I'm trying to do through these 20 quotations. I wonder what you think. Will religion be growing, where it's about spiritual life and personal hope, but dying out, where it's about rules and traditions? Sounds like a liberal perspective to me. Will religion be dying out because religion was a previous attempt to make sense of the world, but philosophy and science do it better these days? Or is the idea that religion and science are in a perpetual conflict which science is winning unsustainable in the face of the enormous numbers of Muslim scientists, Christian scientists who engage in scientific endeavour and find no conflict at all between their endeavours and the practice and beliefs of their faith? You can see that that's meant to be a complex inquiry. It's not supposed to be RVE dumbed down. The thing that has been thrilling, genuinely thrilling about that question, will religion be growing or dying out in the next 50 years, is how much interest it has generated amongst young people, pupils and students. Actually, from right down in year 4 and 5, we've used the question, but at year 7, 8 and 9, it demands a sophisticated, objective, critical, pluralistic engagement from our young people as they try and write the essay that comes at the end of that unit. I'm not going to go through the whole unit now, but perhaps that gives you enough to give you the flavour of the ways in which that objective, critical, pluralistic set of approaches would influence the study of a question of this sort. The task we've set for pupils there says, you work as a reporter for a magazine. It's Wales now, and your editor's impressed with your work. And she says, we're going to have a centre spread next month on this question, religion, dying or growing in Wales. So you have to write an introduction to the issues. You have to deal with the data from the 2021 census there. You need to present two sides of the argument. You're going to do that in two different opinion boxes. You're going to make up some quotes, get some quotations from people on different sides of the argument. And then at the end of your article, a conclusion, give a personal viewpoint as a journalist reporter based on what you found out. Just notice there, one little aspect of this inquiry is that Wales has in some ways been an engine of religious innovation 120 years ago in a quite extraordinary way. I wonder if you know this. But in 1904, the Christian communities called Pentecostal communities originated simultaneously in southwest and southeast Wales, it seems. And the phenomena of speaking in tongues, the phenomena of charismatic Christian worship, the phenomena of Pentecostal spiritual activism, and the enjoyment of that spread between 1904 and 1905 across South Wales, so that around about 100,000 people became Pentecostal Christians in that rather brief 18 months. And they built chapels. It happens in Wales, build chapels. Many of those chapels are now carpet warehouses or sell quick-fit exhaust pipes to people whose cars are broken down. Pentecostalism in Wales is no longer as big as 100,000 at all. But globally, the Pentecostal Christian movements now number, well, the official denominations of Pentecostalism number about 300 million people. And then the unofficial ones, the charismatic churches, often independent, led by charismatic leadership, but in Pentecostal style, those number more than another 300 million. So something that happened in Wales 120 years ago, then kind of died away in Wales somewhat. There are still Pentecostals in Wales, they're smaller. That movement seeded Pentecostal Christianity for over 600 million people across the world. So just notice there that an objective religious education will notice, in the context of a question like this, will notice both the decline of religion in Wales and that rather extraordinary growth in that example. And Pentecostalism's not alone there. Christianity, Islam, Hindu tradition have grown and grown and grown, hundreds of millions of people more than they were 50 years ago, right across the world. So what perspective do you think your kids should get of religion in the world today? A perspective based on Caerphilly? Yes, for sure. A perspective based on South Wales? Definitely. A perspective based on all of Wales? Yes, please. All of the UK, all of Europe, the whole wide world? Yes, I'm saying yes, yes, yes to that. If you want pupils to leave their RVE studies as ethical informed citizens, then you need to teach them, and RVE needs to teach them to find, to evaluate, to use evidence informing their views, and to be knowledgeable about their own culture and community, but also about the wider society and the world in which they live in, now and in the past. That's the humanities AOLE functioning through the lens of RVE in ways that will lead our young people to be critical, objective, and pluralistic in their thinking and study of religions and of non-religious philosophical convictions. Now, I work with the BBC, and as we move on to just have a think about what critical RVE might be like, I want to show you a short clip that I made with the BBC a little while back here, which looks at ideas from the Christians and from followers of the Buddha, and it asks the question, could there be a life after this life? Why do so many people believe in that? So would you have a look at the clip, first of all, please?